The car jostled and rocked with a familiar bump. The old air conditioner vents blew warm, oppressive air mixed with the human scent of the crowded carriage, overwhelming everything. My fingertips brushed the worn canvas pattern on the outside of my backpack, and my eyes swept past the familiar street scenery outside the window. A clear memory rushed back in an instant. Today is June 7th, the first day of the Gaokao Chinese exam, and I have been reborn onto this commuting bus that changed my life. The carriage is densely packed, with high school seniors from the same school, all in uniform, most of them clutching review materials, pencil cases, or little slips of memorized knowledge, recitations clattering, and low conversations, and the soft rustle of stationery mixing together to fill the entire bus. The bus is steadily traveling along the main road toward the city test center. Still 2 kilometers away, exactly the precise moment in my previous life when this very bus completely failed and ruined my first Gaokao exam. In the front row by the window, a few figures stand out. Iris sits upright, her long hair neatly smooth, school uniform impeccably worn, a simple yet luxurious watch on her pale wrist, widely recognized as the school's most beautiful girl, and a top student who consistently ranks in the top 10 of the grade. She is surrounded by 5 or 6 other top students who stick with her. Lucas, Chloe, Ethan among them, protecting her in the middle. A scene fit for a crowd of adoring fans. They are the teacher's prize pupils, the envy of the grade, used to being aloof, and accustomed to stepping on me, a quiet, ordinary student who has always performed at the bottom. Today, in this life, it is this group of people who on this bus mock me wantonly, tease me, and after the ensuing traffic jam derailed my exam, they reversed right and wrong and pushed all the blame onto me, saddling me with years of stigma and regret. I don't make any unnecessary movements. My gaze level, with the front windshield steady as I watch the road and traffic, my fingertips lightly resting on the zipper of my backpack, always attentive to the vehicle's movement. Final exams are almost here, but some people still act so carefree. Aren't they in a hurry at all? A clear voice, with a deliberately scornful edge, suddenly sounds. It's Iris. She doesn't turn around, but her tone deliberately climbs, just enough for everyone nearby to hear. Highly targeted. When the words fall, Chloe beside her immediately agrees, turning toward the back of the bus to glance at me, her eyes full of unhidden mockery. What's there to be anxious about? The foundation is already there. Even if you study more, it won't help. You're just here to fill the exam seat. After the exam, you should prepare to repeat or to work. The carriage falls into silence for a moment, many students' eyes turning toward me, filled with scrutiny, curiosity, and a little mischief for the spectacle. For an entire senior year, it's clear to the whole class, even the whole grade, that Iris's little circle loves to joke at my expense, using their own excellence to highlight my mediocrity. Ethan tosses down the materials he's studying and sneers, his tone flippant and arrogant. I even saw her slacking off after evening study yesterday. Everyone else was cranking out problems. She was daydreaming. With this attitude, she'll be lucky to score in the 3s. It would be better if we just go easy. Right. People's differences are set from birth. Iris finally turns back, her gaze sweeping over me, with a cool, indifferent smile at the corner of her mouth. We've worked hard for 3 years to aim for key universities. Some people just drift for 3 years. It's a waste of test resources. When the results come out, it'll just drag down our school's average. The others chime in one after another, stepping on my pain, deliberately belittling me in front of the students, and inflating their own sense of superiority. Some people murmur in agreement, others snicker privately, but no one speaks up to stop them. In everyone's perception, Iris and her group are high-achieving and well-behaved, trustworthy top students, while I am the quiet, bottom-of-the-class student who is routinely teased as deserved. I sit still in my seat the entire time, spine straight, head unraised, no verbal response, and no flicker of emotion on my face. I am not burdened by the awkwardness, inferiority, or panic from my past life, nor will I be, as before, made to blush red-faced and frantic by their few words. All my attention is fixed on the road ahead, and the bus's operating status. At this moment, the road is smooth. There is no sign of congestion. The carriage is normal, and everyone is immersed in the tense atmosphere before the exam, either reciting and reviewing or chatting to relax. No one notices that a crisis is about to arrive. Only I know that in 1 minute, there will be an emergency at the intersection ahead, followed by a mechanical failure of this old bus, which will stall and die on the main road, and it will be absolutely unrecoverable for a while. In my past life, I fell prey to trusting a vehicle's minor fault and stayed on the bus, with the crowd, waiting, eventually missing the first exam of the college entrance exam. And my life trajectory collapsed entirely, and the group of top students who mock me now had, in their past life, luckily caught the exam. Afterward, they reversed the facts, saying it was because my mentality was poor that I got off the bus early, and spread anxiety, causing some to panic and err, and they pushed all responsibility onto me. Lucas saw that I remained silent, thinking I was acquiescing to their taunts, and afraid to refute, and grew even more brazen. Why aren't you saying anything? Has the focus already hit you? We've told you before to face reality early. College entrance exams aren't a joke. You can't fool your way through by just passively wasting time. Stop bullying her. Iris spoke softly, feigning gentleness, but with a vein of false magnanimity in her tone. After all, not everyone has talent or willpower. She's already pitiful enough. Let's not say more, and just focus on the exam. The seemingly conciliatory words, in truth, nails me to the label of mediocre and pitiful, self-surrendering to ruin, making everyone around assume I am the useless student they call a failure. The chatter in the bus gradually quieted, and everyone lowered their heads to attend to their own things again. No longer paying attention to me, Iris and her group regrouped and discussed exam formats, estimated scores, and target schools with fervor, their words filled with confident certainty, as if their admissions letters from prestigious schools were already firmly in their hands. I remained seated still, hands naturally resting on my knees, my gaze fixed on the road ahead. The wheels kept turning smoothly, the bus remained steady, everything seemed flawless, with no sign of any anomaly. But I knew the countdown had begun, and their arrogance and pride would soon be met with the most thorough backlash. I raised my hand, pinching the zipper of my backpack with my fingertips, slowly and steadily zipping it up, ensuring the stationery pouch, admission ticket, and ID card were all secure and placed in the most easily accessible spot. After finishing this, I slightly adjusted my posture, leaning a bit forward, ready to stand up and alight at any moment. The passenger in the front row, Iris, inadvertently caught a glimpse of my tense posture through the window and couldn't help but snort softly, whispering to Chloe beside her, "Look at her. So nervous. Is it useful?" A last-minute cram session never saves those who've slacked off for 3 years. Chloe lowered her head, smiling as she flipped through her study materials, and replied carelessly, "Let her be. After today, we'll be 2 different worlds from her, never to intersect again." The 2 whispers floated lightly, filled with extreme superiority, landing in my ears. Yet, I remained unmoved. 3 seconds later, the bus rolled into the center of the intersection, the previously steady body suddenly jolting violently, the engine producing a harsh screech, and then it died completely and fell silent. The carriage lurched suddenly, and everyone's bodies were thrown forward involuntarily, the documents and stationery in their hands scattering all over the floor. The originally noisy carriage fell silent in an instant. After a brief silence inside the vehicle, the constant rush of panic sounds exploded all at once. Some people hurriedly held onto the window frame. Others bent down to pick up scattered books and stationery. Fractured complaints and anxious whispers layered over one another, filling the cabin completely. The driver fiddled with the keys and pressed the accelerator repeatedly. The engine emitted only a few dry, hollow sounds and could no longer start. He opened the door, leaned out to check, then turned back, and calmly but helplessly spoke to the passengers. "The car has completely broken down. The electrical system and the engine are both issues, and they can't be fixed in the short term. Do you want to wait for maintenance personnel, or get off and go on your own? It's up to you. This sentence completely ignited the anxiety in the car. Today is the first day of the Gaokao. Every minute and second is crucial. Stranding here might mean missing the most important exam of one's life. In the midst of the panic, Iris remained calmly seated in the front row, her posture poised and unflustered, with no intention of getting up. She raised her wrist to check the watch, a confident smile at the corner of her mouth, then turned to soothe the anxious companions beside her. Her voice was clear enough for those nearby to hear. "Don't panic. It's just a normal vehicle malfunction." Iris spoke, with confidence, with undeniable resolve. This road is designated for Gakko commutes, and the traffic management department must have an emergency dispatch vehicle. We should just wait in the car. The school and the transportation department won't let us miss the exam. And there's no need to walk and tire ourselves out unnecessarily. Her followers instantly settled down, nodding in agreement. Chloe closed the study guide she had just picked up, glancing disdainfully at me in the back seat as she rose, sneering. Some people just can't stay calm. A little thing, and they panic. Walking to the exam hall would take at least 20 minutes. Tiring, and making you sweat, and anxious for no reason. It's better to stay calm and wait for the car. Ethan laughed from the back of the chair, sneering. She's not panicking because she's nervous. She's just got a bad mindset, knowing she'll do poorly. She creates drama to seek attention, acting like she's rushing to the exam ridiculous. Lucas chimed in, with arrogance. Just wait calmly. If you insist on pretending to hurry and get off the car, that's just pointless. Later, we'll ride an emergency vehicle to the exam on time. She'll be exhausted and still fail. They sang in chorus, directing their insults at me again. Many examinees nearby were swayed by their arguments, and the previously restless hearts gradually calmed, choosing to stay in the car and wait for rescue. In everyone's eyes, Iris and this group of top students were more reliable, their judgments precise, and their actions calm, far more trustworthy than making a rash offtake of exit to rush to the exam. I ignored all the taunting looks around me, calmly shouldering my backpack, with one hand, the strap securely on my shoulder. Actions clean and decisive, with no hesitation. I didn't offer extra explanations, nor did I argue with them. The outcome of my previous life had already proven that their arrogance at this moment was merely a precursor to later face-slapping. I turned sideways and walked through the crowded aisle toward the door. As I passed the front row seats, Iris deliberately raised her volume, feigning consolation but actually taunting. "Don't force yourself. If you can't make it by walking, you'll be late and miss the exam, and no one will feel sorry for you." I did not slow my pace. My gaze remained straight ahead as I stepped off the bus platform and landed firmly on the sidewalk outside the station. Far ahead, the scene at the intersection came clearly into view. Several traffic police officers were quickly pulling up barriers and placing warning signs. The main road would soon be under temporary traffic control to facilitate the subsequent Gaokao traffic flow. Once the control is in effect, all stranded vehicles would be barred from passage, and maintenance and emergency vehicles would not be able to enter. That is why I was determined to get off. These people only saw a temporary vehicle malfunction, but they did not see the ensuing control. They believed that their top student judgment could surely win, not realizing they were already trapped where they stood. I didn't pause. I turned and took a wide step, walking briskly along the sidewalk toward the exam venue. The morning wind brushed past my ears, my steps light yet steady, each step widening the gap between me and the stranded carriages. The people in the carriage were still chatting and waiting, Iris leading a small group into a debrief of high-frequency exam points. Relaxed, completely immersed in the illusion of having a sure victory. They occasionally glanced at me, hurrying by through the car window, their eyes full of sarcasm and derision, sure that I would ultimately accomplish nothing. After I had walked several hundred meters, I finally heard commotion behind me. One by one, examinees spotted the distant traffic control barriers, realizing something was wrong, and hurriedly jumped off the bus, running with the crowd toward the exam venue. The previously calm Iris group was now panicking. Chloe was the first to notice the traffic control scene at the intersection. Her face turned pale in an instant. Her voice flustered. "The road is closed. The main road is completely controlled. Cars can't go at all." That sentence shattered everyone's composure in an instant. Ethan and Lucas stood up abruptly, the calm on their faces completely gone, replaced by full-blown panic. Iris's smile stiffened in an instant, instinctively clenching the review materials in her hand, a hint of panic flashing in her eyes. She quickly looked out the window, watching the progressively traffic control barriers, watching the lane ahead being completely closed, and finally understood that her judgment had been wrong. But she still refused to admit defeat, forcing herself to steady her mind, speaking in a deep voice. "Don't rush. There's still a chance to walk. Let's hurry now. Speed up a bit, and we can catch up." I was walking steadily along the main pedestrian path at a constant speed, my steps calm and unshaken. The city's morning traffic moved in an orderly fashion, the road ahead clear, with only 10 minutes' walk to the exam venue. Behind me, the pursuing crowd closed in quickly. Iris and the others sprinted, with all their might, their ragged breathing clearly audible. The composed demeanor once on the bus now completely gone. They pulled away from a pack of following examinees and charged straight toward me, aiming to overtake me. With their physical advantage and salvage face, Chloe led the way, her face flushed, her speech rapid, and full of reluctance. "She's actually moving so fast. We started so much later. We must catch up to her." Ethan surged forward, still speaking, with arrogance. "It's just a steady walk. If we run, with all our might, we'll surely surpass her. Let us reach the exam venue first, and see what else she can pretend." Iris forced her frantic breathing to stay calm, and urged in a low voice, "Don't slacken. Make the most of the time. We're stronger than she is, and steadier in mindset. We must not fall behind her." The group put in every ounce of effort to speed up, their distance rapidly narrowing, and they soon reached only a few meters behind me. Along the way, many other exam takers hurrying to their destinations glanced over in astonishment at this normally polished group of top students now racing in a panic, while they looked at me moving steadily ahead, with expressions of surprise. Approaching a crosswalk, the green light at the intersection was about to count down. The traffic began to surge as pedestrians paused to wait. I fixed my gaze on the countdown at the traffic lights, my steps unwavering, landing precisely on the last 2 seconds to step onto the crosswalk, and crossing the intersection smoothly. Just as I landed on the opposite bank, the red light lit up. The Iris group, almost half a step behind, was blocked at the crosswalk. The sudden red light abruptly cut off their pursuit rhythm. Ethan fixed his gaze on the lit red light, anxious, and muttering curses under his breath. Lucas bent over, hands on his knees, panting hard, sweat soaking his face, eyes full of impotence. Chloe looked at me in the distance ahead, her tone laced with grievance and resentment. "She's definitely doing this on purpose. She's waiting to cross the street just to shake us off." Iris's face tightened as she watched me continue ahead, with an unimpeded path, and she could no longer maintain her usual calm. She clenched her fists, so hard the fingertips whitened, speaking coldly, "Don't hurry. There are only 30 seconds of the red light. When the green light comes on, we'll sprint at full speed, and surely catch up." More pedestrians gathered at the intersection, mostly senior high students rushing to take exams. Frustration spread as everyone checked the time on their phones during the brief delay. I, on the other hand, did not pause at all, continuing along the clearly open sidewalk, gradually widening the gap. 30 seconds passed in a flash, and the green light came on. Iris and the others immediately accelerated, reckless as they crossed the road, even brushing past passing non-motorized vehicles and drawing disapproving stares from bystanders. They paid no mind to anything but catching up to me, determined to turn the tide, but the half-minute pause was enough for me to already be nearly 100 m ahead. The frantic chase left them breathless, their steps unsteady, sweat dripping into their hair, utterly miserable. Even with all-out sprinting, they could only watch my back from a distance, unable to close the gap any further. A divergence path appeared along the route. The main road ahead would soon face a brief peak in foot traffic, making congestion likely. Reborn. And well prepared, I predicted the upcoming traffic and adjusted my route in advance, taking a side, less crowded straight path to perfectly avoid the crowding. Iris and the others behind me had no anticipation and continued to cling to the main road, racing along the route. In a short moment, the main road was instantly crowded with examinees and morning pedestrians, the dense crowd completely blocking the path forward. They were forced to wedge themselves among the crowd, trapped between moving forward and backward, only able to follow the slow flow of people passively as the pace plummeted. Ethan could no longer hold it together, his tone full of gruff anger. Why are there suddenly so many people? If I had known, we should have taken another route. Chloe, anxious and irritable, accused, with a sob in her voice. It's all because of those 30 seconds of delay. If we weren't stopped by the red light just now, we wouldn't be stuck here at all. The two argued and fought right then, and the small group that had stuck together in unity for the first time showed clear internal conflict. Iris shouted to stop their quarrel, forcibly stabilizing the situation, but the panic and anxiety in her eyes could no longer be hidden. The trunk of the crowd was completely blocked, sealing off the forward path, and Iris and her group completely lost the opportunity to use the main road. In a panic, they quickly changed direction and rushed toward a side alley connected to the old city center that leads to the exam hall, intending to take a shortcut and surge ahead. This alley is a shortcut well known to locals, short distance, directly connecting to the passage behind the exam hall, normally free of obstacles, and it was also the preferred route for many examinees in a previous life. In their view, this was the only chance to turn the tables and catch up to me. I glanced at the movements behind me, my steps unchanged, and I walked straight toward a narrow service lane to the side of the alley. This narrow passage is known to almost no one, wide enough for a single person, rarely used, but never crowded, and it was the optimal route I had pre-locked in. Iris led people into the wide main alley, and their sight line appeared clear, instantly boosting their confidence. No one is in this alley. We can definitely catch up. Chloe, sprinting frantically, gasped for air but couldn't hide the excitement. Ethan gritted his teeth and sped up, his tone still carrying a grudging arrogance. She dares not take the main alley, only hides along the side road, purely a dumb tactic. We'll overtake on the shortcut. Iris, suppressing her breath, accelerated quickly, her tense expression easing slightly. In her judgment, the main alley shortcut is within reach. Detouring along the service lane would only waste time, and a comeback was only a matter of time. The small group's internal strife briefly subsided, and everyone pushed forward with all their might, determined to overtake. But as soon as they charged into the middle section of the alley, an anomaly suddenly appeared ahead. 2 cargo tricycles halted across the alley. Several vendors hurriedly unloaded boxes, miscellaneous items, and baskets of fruits and vegetables piled on the ground, completely blocking the entire wide main alley, without leaving a single passage. The old city alleys are narrow, with no space to deter. There is no retreat ahead or behind. The sudden blockage cut off their last chance to overtake. The group slammed on their brakes, the inertia nearly causing the front row to fall. Staring at the dense pile of goods, everyone's face turned ashen, and they froze in place. Why is someone unloading here on a day like the Gaokao? Don't you have to avoid the examinees? Lucas stepped forward, his voice anxious, and collapsed, reaching out to move the cardboard boxes. But it was to no avail. The vendors, busy with their work, responded casually, with a flat tone. We unload here at this spot all year round. No one told us to stop today. The alley is a public passage. What does your rushing to take the exam have to do with us? The remark left them speechless. They knew speed mattered, but had no solution. Their massive bodies and the heaps of goods directly confronted each other, making any progress impossible. Chloe's eyes welled up, with tears in an instant, and the mounting anxiety completely overwhelmed her last bit of calm. We are done. This is totally blocked. The main road is blocked. The side alley is blocked. We can't possibly catch up. Ethan's bottled-up emotions finally exploded. He turned and angrily rebuked Iris. It's all Because of your judgment, you insisted on waiting for the emergency vehicle and using the shortcut. If you had gotten off a little earlier, this would never have happened. Why is it all my fault? It's something we all decided together to stay and choose the shortcut. Iris, for the first time, lost her public composure, her voice tight and sharp, completely abandoning her usual gentle and generous class beauty demeanor. The brief calm shattered completely, and the small group's internal strife exploded. They cursed each other, each shifting blame, venting all their irritability and dissatisfaction on their companions. The once close, mutually supportive image of top students collapsed under time and crisis. Meanwhile, I smoothly stepped into the side narrow path. The ground was clean and open, with no debris, no pedestrians, no obstacles. I sidestepped and advanced steadily, all the way smoothly. The narrow path may be short, but it perfectly avoided all the congestion and surprises of the main alley. Walked through the narrow passage to the main road, and 100 m away is the open square surrounding the exam site. The entire area has neat yellow security barriers raised. Security personnel stationed at fixed posts. Many examinees who arrived smoothly queuing for security checks in orderly lines. The broadcast looping, with countdown prompts for the exam hall, creating a solemn and disciplined atmosphere. I keep my steady pace, walking unhurriedly into the square area, completely calm throughout. The spare time I arrived early is enough for me to safely complete all entry verification procedures. Not long after, a burst of noisy, hurried footsteps came from behind. Iris and others finally broke free from the alley congestion and came rushing in, disheveled and scrambling. Their hair was tangled, school uniforms wrinkled, foreheads covered in sweat. No longer the refined, well-dressed top students they used to be. They dashed, with all their might, to the square entrance, just about to instinctively follow the crowd into the venue when a duty-holding teacher raised a hand to stop them. Today's first exam has added a temporary verification role. The regular channels are closed. All examinees must go through the manual registration channel. Late arrivals must register separately and have their IDs verified one by one. The teacher's voice was clear and stern, spreading through the crowd. With the new rule in place, the queue instantly diverted. Examinees who arrived normally could quickly verify and enter, while all latecomers arriving at the card checking point were put into a separate slow verification queue. Iris and the others' faces changed dramatically, and their remaining sliver of luck was completely shattered. They had originally thought a simple security check would let them in, but the sudden new rule drastically shortened their remaining time in the chaos. Several of them fumbled for documents and stationery in their frantic sprint and pushing, their pencil cases skewed, exam admission tickets wrinkled and twisted. Someone lost their spare pen, someone couldn't find their ID card, and the scene turned chaotic. Chloe rummaged through her bag, fingers trembling, voice choked with tears. My marker pen is missing. I lost it. While rushing here, Ethan suddenly knocked the papers from his bag, a scatter of study materials across the floor. The more urgent, the more chaotic. He growled, "Why are there so many broken rules? Normally, we don't even need to register separately." Lucas held a crumpled admission ticket, smoothing the creases repeatedly, his eyes panicked, constantly looking up at the countdown board by the entrance. The group argued in their own panic, some blaming Chloe for rushing, others accusing Ethan of wasting time mid-route, others blaming Iris for misjudging the route. The accumulated resentment exploded, tiny factions sinking into disunity. Iris forced down her panic, trying to study the situation, still maintaining her class flower demeanor. "Stop arguing. Quickly organize your documents. As long as we finish registration before the deadline, we can enter normally." But her calm was already virtual empty, fingertips trembling, repeatedly glancing at her watch, eyes revealing unhidden fear. She had never been so embarrassed, never been so completely shattered of all sense of superiority on a routine exam day. I stood among the normal verification line, moving, with composure throughout. I produced the neatly arranged exam admission ticket, an ID card, cooperated with security to verify identity, inspect stationery, and pass through security equipment. each step orderly, without a hint of delay. In just a few tens of seconds, I smoothly passed all checks and stepped into the safe area inside the security line. I paused and turned around, clearly seeing the chaos at the square entrance. Iris and the others were stuck at the end of the manual registration queue, repeatedly halted for verification. Because their documents were incomplete and their states chaotic, the process, originally only a few minutes, was stretched indefinitely by their confusion and internal strife. The broadcast at the exam entrance loops over and over, mechanical, cold, precise to the second, driving the nerves of every test taker present to their limit. The countdown numbers on the screen flicker relentlessly. Every second lost chips away at Iris and the other's last shred of hope. I stand inside the security line in the safe zone, steps unhurried, posture upright, quietly watching the shabby farce they themselves have set in motion at the door come to an end. The crowd in the square has mostly dispersed. All candidates who arrived on time have passed security and entered the venue. The vast square now remains, with only a few straggling examinees sprinting at the card checkpoints, and Iris's small group trapped at the end of the manual registration queue. Just a moment ago, scattered examinees who had been surrounding them, with praise and applause, have all gone into the exam halls. No one lingering to watch, and certainly no one to defend them. Iris forcibly suppresses the anxiety, and panic seething inside, clutches the exam admission ticket that has long been damp, with sweat from her palm, and together, with Chloe, Ethan, and Lucas, squeezes forward trying to speed up the registration process. But the more hurried they are, the more mistakes they make, the more flustered they become, the more sluggish everything gets. Staff members check ID information one by one, inspect exam documents, any creased documents, blurred information, or missing stationery require a second manual verification, and each stop significantly prolongs their stay. Chloe, having lost the pen for marking, is completely at a loss, repeatedly begging the staff for leniency, hoping to be let through, planning to borrow stationery from the invigilator once inside the exam room. But the rules of the college entrance exam are stringent. Examinees with incomplete documents or stationery are not allowed to enter, and the staff refuse in accordance with the rules, with no room for compromise. Ethan's morale collapses completely, no longer able to maintain his usual student-topper demeanor. He lowers his voice in public to complain, his words full of unwillingness and anger. He keeps turning his head to glare at Iris beside him, the blame and accusation in his eyes plain to see. If it weren't for the attending teachers and security personnel on the scene, he would have erupted into a fierce argument on the spot. Lucas has long lost his former proud bearing, head bowed as he stands in the queue, his face bleak, occasionally lifting his eyes to fixedly stare at the door of the exam hall, his expression full of unwillingness and remorse. He knows clearly that his 3 years of late-night studying and frantic practice may have been for nothing today. In this very moment, the atmosphere among the four is stiff and icy. The tensions that had accumulated all along are laid bare. No one pretends to be harmonious anymore, and no one offers consolation. Only a silent standoff and resentment remain. Everyone knows that it is the team's arrogance, the faulty judgment, and internal chaos that have gradually dragged everyone into this dead end. I glanced at my watch, and there were only 30 seconds left before the first exam session's entry deadline. The exam room entrance invigilators had already begun organizing the registration ledger. The closing of security equipment was in progress, and all access channels were being brought to a close. The actions of all staff on site slowed down, their gazes fixed on the four who still lingered outside the door, with the solemnity of official business, showing no mercy. 10 seconds left. Stop admitting examinees. Late candidates, please leave the premises voluntarily, and do not linger around the exam hall. The broadcast sounded abruptly, each word clear like a final verdict. Iris panicked completely. She could no longer maintain her usual composed, gentle, calm, and self-disciplined class leader image. She forcefully broke away from the queue and charged toward the exam hall door, her long hair in disarray, her breath ragged. Her voice trembled as she pleaded continuously with the invigilator at the entrance. "Teacher, Please cut us some slack this time. We're just a few seconds off. Our scores have always ranked among the top. It won't affect the exam order nor hinder the exam process. The Galco is too important for us to have it invalidated. Because of this one accident. Chloe, right behind, also welled up, crying, with a supplicating tone, repeatedly bowing, and apologizing, apologetic, and utterly embarrassed. Ethan and Lucas quickly stepped forward, circling the proctor, constantly defending and pleading, trying to exchange their usual excellent grades and the teacher's favoritism for a chance at special entry. In their fixed perception, they were top students in the grade, the school's key trainees, the teacher's most promising students. Even if late, they should receive special leniency, should be spared, and possess more privileges than ordinary test takers. But the rules of the college entrance exam never distinguish by score or status. In the face of strict exam discipline, all candidates are equal, with no exceptions, no privileges. The proctor on duty wore a stern expression, resolute in attitude, raising a hand to block all their paths, his tone unforgiving. There are explicit rules for the entrance time of the Gaokao. The system locks the papers on time and closes the exam hall on time. No one may be exempt. Being late means absent from the exam. This is a fixed rule. No one can make an exception. Leave the exam entrance immediately. Do not linger here and cause trouble. We didn't mean to be late. It was a bus breakdown, an unexpected traffic issue. Iris shouted unwillingly, her refined face utterly distorted. The usual cold elegance vanished. It's an accident. It's not our fault. Why should we bear the consequences? All candidates faced the same traffic condition, the same sudden situation. The teacher's gaze was calm, yet every word was forceful, hitting the core. Some people anticipated in advance, alighted in time, entered on time. You gambled on luck, lingered, and waited, missed the opportunity. All consequences are the result of your own choices, and have nothing to do with the outside world. This sentence completely shattered their last shred of luck. I stood inside the caution line, quietly watching the four collapse and lose their composure outside the door. They used to sit in the front row of the bus, looking down on me, belittling me, sure I would fail the Gaokao, vowing I was doomed to be a college entrance exam failure. They, relying on their stellar grades, formed an arrogant clique, looking down on anyone not as good as them, thinking they controlled everything and would win every time. But now, the ending has completely reversed. They preferred them to be a slacker, mediocre, destined to fail, stand firmly inside the exam hall holding the qualification to take the test, with the opportunity to give my all. And this group of top students, whom the whole school pinned high hopes on, and who are so self-satisfied with their excellence, are blocked outside the exam hall having personally doomed their first Gaokao, becoming the biggest losers outside the exam hall. The room lock warning beeped rang on time, and the door of the exam hall slowly closed. The heavy exam hall iron door closed completely. The crisp sound of the latch engaging fell, completely cutting off Iris and the others from any possibility of entry. I turned and stepped into the corridor, my silhouette blending into the quiet mood of the examination room, completely isolating all the bustle and awkwardness outside, and outside the exam hall, in the tree shade waiting area, a face-saving collapse of internal strife was just beginning to play out in a roar of intensity. The early summer sun rose higher, sunlight through the branches and leaves, casting mottled, fragmented light on the ground, the shaded open area that was originally for test takers and parents to rest and cool off had now become a battleground where four people's emotions spiraled out of control, surrounding parents, security inspectors, and finishing staff lingering nearby paused to take note, their gazes fixed on these four top students who had fallen apart. Chloe knelt under the shade, gripping her knees tightly, with both hands, her shoulders trembling violently, muffled sobs breaking through. The long-held composure she had maintained finally collapsed, and all the grievances, fear, and despair erupted. She had always achieved outstanding grades since childhood, consistently among the top in her class, the pride of her parents, and the teacher's key student, never imagining that her first exam of the Gaokao would end in absence. Ethan clenched his fists tightly, knuckles pale, his chest rising and falling violently, the accumulated anger finally breaking through all restraint. He no longer cared about past camaraderie and the harmony of their little groups. He turned to glare grimly at Iris, whose face was deathly pale, his tone icy and sharp, filled with unmasked accusation. "It's all your arrogance." Ethan's voice carried restrained, furious anger, breaking the quiet outside the venue. "When the bus broke down, everyone panicked. It was you who insisted there would be an emergency shuttle. You who made us stay in place and not get off early to rush along. If not for your blind self-confidence, how could we have arrived at the point of missing the exam?" That sentence hit everyone's sore spot precisely, instantly igniting the long simmering contradictions. Always silent and dejected, Lucas slowly raised his head as well, his eyes filled with remorse, resentment, and disappointment, shedding all blind adoration and worship for Iris. In the past, he had always centered on Iris, believed her judgment, followed her decisions, and was convinced that following the top student would never go wrong. But today, this blind following had completely ruined his first Gakko chance. You say the traffic conditions were fine, that there was no need to panic, that getting off early would have been overreacting. Lucas's voice was hoarse and low, filled with extreme disappointment. "We all believed you, gave up the best chance to hurry, and missed chance after chance to turn things around. And now, your so-called precise judgment, your calm foresight, all of it was wrong." Facing the two's volley of accusations, Iris could no longer maintain even a shred of dignity. The gentle grace she used to master so well, the calm and collected demeanor, were completely shattered by despair. Her delicate face was ashen, her tangled hair stuck to her sweat-soaked neck, eyes swollen red, her tone sharp and stiff, in a smugly enraged paradox. "Why is it all my fault?" Iris raised her voice, driven by a collapse. At that moment, everyone on the bus was watching. "I wasn't the only one who chose to stay. It was up to you to believe, up to you to wait. No one forced you. If you had had an opinion at the time, gotten off early to rush, how could you have stayed with me and been late together?" She habitually shifted blame, as always arrogantly, never admitting her misjudgment or bowing her head to admit fault, even in the face of desperation. "Are you still going to argue?" Chloe suddenly lifted her head, tears welling up, coldness in her eyes. "Earlier, someone got off early to rush along. We all saw it. You mocked others for their poor mentality. You blocked us from leaving. If you hadn't moved everyone, with your self-pity and blind confidence, we would have smoothly gotten into the exam hall like her." The she in Chloe's words, without needing to say it, is me who had just calmly entered. A simple comparison lays bare the four of them's arrogance and stupidity, leaving them unable to fool themselves any longer. The four have split into three factions, arguing and shifting blame, while the once inseparable elite group of top students who used to stick together, rally behind each other, and dominate the grade list, collapses under the scorching sun. Not a single one reflects on their follow-the-crowd blind conformity and negligent luck. Everyone frantically shifts responsibility, portraying themselves as innocent victims, and pushing all the blame onto their peers around them. Watching parents murmur in low voices, sighing, regretful, and incredulous, no one sympathizes with their predicament. Everyone can clearly see that this tragedy is not an accident or a matter of road conditions, but stems from their deep-seated arrogance and self-importance. Just as the four argue endlessly, and the stalemate intensifies, a hurried sound of footsteps comes from the school gate. The head teacher of the third-year class, Miss Carter, arrives briskly, expressions taut, steps hurried, and her eyes immediately catch the four in their disgraceful quarrel under the shade. As the homeroom teacher for the key class, she had high hopes for these four top students, the school's targets for prestigious universities, and the rate of admission to top-tier undergraduate programs largely rest on them. This morning, she had specifically arrived early at the examination hall, waiting for a few key examinees to enter. But she hadn't seen the four of them. After many inquiries, she learned that all four were detained outside the scene and missed the first Chinese exam. Miss Carter strides up to them, her face ashen, her tone filled with repressed anger and disappointment. "Why did you four not enter for the test?" When the class teacher arrived, the four immediately restrained their argument, instinctively softening their edges, but still refused to admit fault. Iris forward first, eyes reddened, adopting a posture of grievance and helplessness, attempting to blame everything on external accidents. "Teacher, we didn't miss the exam on purpose. The bus we rode on broke down halfway, and we were stranded. Then there was a traffic control. We rushed all the way, but we were still blocked by the checkpoint and couldn't enter the exam according to the rules." Iris spoke softly, deliberately downplaying her own judgment errors, wanting to win the teacher's sympathy and understanding, but this argument was already untenable. After hearing them out, Miss Carter showed no mercy. Instead, her anger grew, and her gaze swept over the four with sharp precision. There were 12 examinees from our school who rode the same bus together. The other 8 got off early and arrived at the exam hall on time and entered smoothly. Only you 4 missed the exam entirely. One simple sentence directly pierced all their excuses and lies. The 4 frozen PLA see their faces turning pale, no longer able to utter a single defense. They finally understood that all accidents are fair. Everyone faces the same difficulties, and the difference lies in choices and mindset. Those who let go of arrogance and make decisive choices when the chance to take the exam. They clinging to conceit and delaying, with luck, have destroyed their own eligibility to take the exam. I have repeatedly reminded you to allow plenty of time on the day of the Gaokao to act decisively when problems arise, and not to gamble on luck. Miss Carter's voice was cold and disappointed, each word piercing the heart. You relied on your grades, were self-righteous, and stuck together in complacency, underestimating risk. Others walked steadily toward their goals, while you and the bus mocked them, feigned, and tossed. Now the results are out, and you have buried your own first Gaokao. The sun blazed down. The shade under the trees felt stifling and oppressive. The 4 stood, with their heads bowed, their bodies stiff, their former pride and glory crushed to the ground. Chinese is the first subject of the Gaokao. Missing it directly yields 0 for that subject, causing a massive drop in the total Gaokao score, completely eliminating any hope of admission to key universities. Miss Carter announced the most brutal consequence in a hushed voice. Going forward, the school will report the situation according to the rules and impose formal disciplinary actions, and you will bear the consequences of your own actions. The closing bell for the exam hall rang, and the entire teaching building fell into complete quiet. In the standardized test room, the lighting was bright, the air conditioning cooled to a constant temperature. The desks were clean and orderly and stationary. Answer sheets and test papers were neatly arranged. Only the soft rustling sound of pen tips drawing across paper rose and fell, steady and orderly. I sat upright at my seat, gripping a black ballpoint pen between my fingers, my gaze calmly sweeping across the entire Chinese language test paper. The advantages of my rebirth were now fully evident. There was no previous anxiety or inferiority, no panic at the moment. 3 years of renewed study, repeated practice of question types, and mastery of knowledge points were all clearly and neatly laid out in my mind. Reading the questions, marking keywords, and organizing the answer plan, every movement was poised and unhurried. Basic question types flowed smoothly from the pen. Reading comprehension pinpointed the core theme, and the classical poetry and literature were written, with every character precise and flawless. Even the most challenging part, the essay, which tests language skills, was instantly steered toward the core angle, with a clear structure and profound intent. Throughout, I maintained a calm mindset, a relaxed yet steady pace, not rushing for success nor dragging my feet, firmly controlling the rhythm of the entire exam. The proctor walked slowly around the room. When he passed my seat, he would briefly pause, scanning my neat, clean answer sheet, with eyes that carried obvious approval. The exam room inside was the new life where I settled, wrote steadily, and turned the tables. Outside the room, Iris and her group were flailing in a desperate, futile struggle, a farce of humiliation, a wall apart, 2 lives, The extreme contrast pushed the sons of triumph to the extreme. Under the shade outside the exam hall, Miss Carter's verdict shattered the last bit of luck the four of them had. After a brief silence, the four of them no longer argued or fought among themselves. They were all filled with unwillingness and stubbornness. They could not accept the reality of receiving a 0 on the first exam, and their dreams of prestigious schools being completely shattered. Nor could they accept that I, who had trampled and ridiculed them for so long, was calmly sitting inside the exam hall answering normally, while they could only become online broadcast jokes of defeat. After a momentary daze, the four quickly recovered and split up to take action, frantically seeking ways to salvage the situation. The once lofty top student who looked down on worldly affairs now lowered himself, rushing around to plead and bargain, attempting to bend the steel rules of Gaokao to cover his vanity. Iris promptly pulled out her phone, dialed her parents, her voice urgent and flustered, completely shedding her former aloof arrogance. She cried on the other end of the line, exaggerating the unforeseen incident on the road, downplaying her own misjudgment, begging her parents to immediately contact the school authorities and the Education Bureau, using every possible means to smooth connections and gain a chance to retake in a special admission. She had grown up in a privileged family, used to smoothly navigating around problems, with resources at hand, and in her mind, as long as the right connections were in place and resources were sufficient, no rule could not be bent. She was convinced that, as the top student in the grade year for many years, the school would not easily give up her admissions banner. Meanwhile, Ethan and Lucas split up and surrounded the team led Miss Carter, repeatedly bowing and apologizing, humble and anxious. They alternated in recounting their 3 years of hard work, detailing their excellent performance in every mock exam, begging the teacher to intervene and help communicate to obtain a chance for a makeup exam, promising to sprint for the rest of the subjects and never drag down the school's admissions rate. Chloe, meanwhile, headed straight for the security post outside the exam hall, bowing and pleading to the on-duty staff, repeatedly saying that she only arrived late by tens of seconds and did not miss the exam, hoping the staff could show leniency and reopen the doors to let her enter. Faced with the staff's procedural refusal, she still refused to give up, entangling in pleadings as her emotions neared collapse. For a moment, chaos swirled outside the exam hall. This group of model students who normally adhere to discipline, presentable, and highly praised by the entire school, have, in order to make amends for their mistakes, continuously harassed staff, troubled teachers, and consumed public resources, completely disrupting the order outside the examination hall. But reality is far crueler than they imagine. As a national standardized exam, the college entrance examination rules are strict, and the process rigorous from entry, and doors being locked to paper sealed to score entry. Every link is recorded via video and networked filing in real time. There is no space for private exceptions, and there are no precedents for special makeup exams. Iris's parents urgently contacted the school administrator and an acquaintance at the Education Bureau. After multiple discussions, the replies were all the same. Lateness or absence is the examinee's personal responsibility. The system locks the papers on time. The papers are uniformly sealed. No one has the right to open a makeup exam channel, and any violation will be pursued for accountability, and the examinee will also be recorded in the Integrity Archive. Not only was there no remedy, but the 4 outside atheism entanglements, crowds causing trouble, and multiple violations, while pleading were all recorded by the security staff during the patrol, and reported on the spot to the exam hall disciplinary committee in barely half an hour. A temporary violation notice was issued to the school, clearly marking that the 4 disrupted order outside the exam hall, and repeatedly entangled staff, constituting exam hall violations. When Miss Carter received this violation notice, her face sank to the bottom of the valley, all her disappointment turning into cold despair. What was originally a regret over a 0 score for missing the exam had now been compounded by the record of violations in the exam hall. The stain would be lifelong in their file, irreversibly affecting future admissions, honors, and even subsequent political background checks. News reached the 4 of them, and the last bit of luck was completely shattered. Iris clenched her hot phone. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Her recently shed tears made her eyes red again, and the blood vessels in her eyes were filled. She had never faced such a defeat in her entire life. She had always enjoyed flowers, applause, praise, and privileges, always been accommodated and favored by others, and never had anything like today, where no amount of effort could salvage it, leaving her utterly powerless. Ethan collapsed onto the roadside steps. His earlier rage and anger had all subsided, leaving only a dead silence and despair. He finally realized clearly that his momentary pride in following the crowd had destroyed not only a single exam, but also his 3 years of hard work and countless nights of diligent study. Lucas leaned against the tree, eyes closed, full of remorse, saying nothing. If only he hadn't blindly followed Iris, if he had had half a mind of his own, and had decisively gotten off the car and hurried on his way, he wouldn't be in the current situation, with his future ruined and his file stained. Chloe had long since cried herself exhausted, her red and swollen eyes hollow and devoid of light, unable to utter a single word anymore. The first Chinese exam of the Gaokao is over, and the crisp final bell rings throughout the entire teaching building. Candidates gradually organize their papers and leave in order, and the whole exam hall gradually returns from quiet to noisy. I follow the flow of people, stepping out of the classroom, with a calm expression, light steps, and a stable performance throughout the exam, without a single slip. Meanwhile, Iris and the other 3 are taken by Miss Carter directly to the school's temporary disposition office outside the exam hall. A narrow, solemn room, a few cold desks, and clear rules about exam conduct posted on the wall. This moment has become the place where their arrogance and mistakes are judged. The 4 stand dejectedly inside, stripping away all gloss, left only embarrassment and unwillingness. The few who had accepted facts and quietly regretted now, in the closed office atmosphere, once again nurtured twisted resentment. They refuse to admit that their own arrogance ended the exam, and they cannot accept being crushed back by me, whom they once looked down upon. The bottomless dissatisfaction in their hearts wholly transforms into malice, and they begin to fabricate excuses and distort the truth at will. Iris takes the lead to raise her head, eyes reddened, with a tone that carries deliberate grievance, an accusation, shifting all blame onto me. Teacher, the real reason we were late is that she deliberately misled us and dumped the blame. Her speed is rapid, her lies skillfully woven, fully whitewashing her own fault. After the bus broke down, everyone was watching and waiting, and she suddenly got off the bus in a hurry, creating an extremely tense atmosphere that unsettled us. Then she deliberately stalled for time and took the shortcut, obstructing our pursuit, targeting us on purpose, causing all of us to be absent. This reversal of black and white is quickly echoed by the other 3. The morning's accumulated grievances and unwillingness have driven them to completely abandon their bottom line, joining forces to slander and frame. Chloe immediately nods in agreement, her tone confident. That's right, teacher. If she hadn't panicked and got off early, intentionally creating anxiety, we wouldn't have lost our rhythm, and we wouldn't have blindly chased and erred. It's all her plan. Ethan wears a tense expression and flings the blame. Her aren't good, knowing she can't beat us. She deliberately uses this despicable method to interfere with our exam, just to pull us all down. With her, extremely petty, Lucas adds his line, confirming the slander. All along, she targeted and deliberately obstructed us. We're passive victims who were affected. Each of their statements is aligned, every word aimed at blackening my character and motives, painting themselves as innocent high achievers who were wrongfully absent, and forcibly placing all blame for the missed exam on me. They intend to discredit me to offset their own judgment errors and arrogant faults, hoping to earn the teacher's understanding. Miss Carter's face remains stern. After hearing the 4's accusations, she shows no sign of sympathy, only finding it ridiculous. She has long seen through the whole incident, and now the 4's team lie and reversal of the truth disappoint her completely. To handle this matter properly, The school had already retrieved surveillance around the exam hall, bus on board footage, and roadside snapshots. The full sequence is complete, the timeline clear, and the evidence irrefutable, with no possibility of tampering. Miss Carter directly opens the office computer and pulls up the complete surveillance video, coolly saying, "You all watch the full footage carefully, and then tell me who is misleading and who is strategizing." The footage clearly reconstructs the entire process. After the bus breakdown, Iris and the others publicly mocked and belittled my rush to get there, certain that the vehicle would receive emergency aid, and insisted on staying in the compartment. They were blindly confident and missed the best moment to get off. In the pursuit, they hurriedly ran, argued among themselves, and took shortcuts indiscriminately, ultimately being blocked by road conditions. I stayed silent the whole way, moving forward alone, with no unnecessary actions, not a single provocative word, from start to finish, just rushing to take my exam. Never aimed at anyone. The solid evidence stood before us, and the four people's carefully woven lies were instantly exposed. The uniformly coordinated statements shattered. With a crash, the look of grievance and innocence on her face froze in place, replaced by panic and embarrassment. Iris's face turned pale, her lips trembled, and she could no longer utter a word of defense. The common intelligence she prided herself on shattered before the clear monitoring evidence. Someone went all the way alone, kept to the rules, handled it calmly and decisively, and went to the exam on time based on her own judgment. Mississippi. Carter's voice was cold and powerful, every word piercing the heart. Contrast that with you all. Arrogant pride, misjudgment, missed opportunities. After failing the exam, you don't reflect and reform, but instead form cliques to spread rumors and maliciously smear your classmates, attempting to invert black and white and shift blame. As a top student in the grade, you lack responsibility, lack vision, lack bottom line, excellent grades, but deficient conduct. This is more shameful than failing the exam. That evening, the school finished all follow-up checks for the first day of the Gaokao regarding the violations by Iris and the other three, including missing the exam and spreading rumors and slander. The disposal outcome was officially determined. The school compiled all surveillance evidence, office inquiry records, and examination venue violation materials, and directly drafted a written notice to be posted at the most conspicuous bulletin board under the teaching building. The entire courtyard is a required passage for senior students entering and exiting the teaching building. Foot traffic is enormous, and the bulletin board has long captured the attention of the entire school. In the past, this spot displayed commendations, honors of outstanding students, and achievements. The names of Iris and the other three frequently appeared on the lists. They were perennial on the honor roll, school-wide role models, admired by all. But today, their names appeared prominently on the disciplinary notice board, the content glaring and striking, completely overturning everyone's preconceived notions. The notice was clear and straightforward, listing facts item by item. The four individuals, due to personal judgment errors and a sense of false security, stayed behind a faulty vehicle and thus missed the first Chinese language exam of the Gaokao. Their single subject score was recorded as 0. After the exam, they failed to reflect, instead formed a clique to fabricate facts and maliciously smear others, slandering fellow students. Outside the exam hall, they repeatedly harassed staff, disrupting the public order of the exam, constituting a disciplinary violation. The final disposition was announced together. The entire school would publicly reprimand them. The disciplinary actions would be recorded in the students' graduation files. All qualification for commendations and scholarships for that year would be cancelled. All remaining senior year mock exam results would not be counted toward the school ranking, and the qualification for key university recommendations would be cancelled. A single notice completely shattered the 3-year halo of being top students. No matter how dazzling the past honors were, the current stain shone even more brightly. Passing senior students and teachers stopped to watch, their eyes landing on the four names. With shock, sighs, and astonishment, no one could have imagined that the four who were ordinarily decent, disciplined, and top of their class would commit such a stupid and ridiculous mistake, and would even engage in defaming and slandering their classmates. News spread quickly through the grade, and, within just 10 minutes or so, the full sequence of events had circulated throughout all of the third-year class. Everyone clearly understood that the other examinees in the same car went in smoothly to take the exam, while the 4 chose to stay behind, missing the exam, and after the failure, even inverted the truth and shifted responsibility. The previously adoring attention around the 4 disappeared completely, replaced by wave after wave of discussion and mockery. So, it wasn't an accidental traffic jam. They were just too arrogant, insisting on waiting for an emergency vehicle. If you fail, reflect on yourself. You even spread rumors and slander others, show per your character is, relying on good grades to feel superior. Yet, at the crucial moment, they're the stupidest. Their attitude and character can't keep up with their scores. Missing the exam and having it recorded as a violation means almost no chance of a top university. 3 years as top students have all gone to waste. The evening breeze dispelled the daytime heat. The first exam of the Gaokao had officially ended. The examinees filed out in small groups, and the school gate was bustling, with voices filled with light chatter and the sounds of footsteps heading home. I tidied my stationery and documents, walked calmly with the crowd through the gates, posture relaxed, steps unhurried. The entire Chinese exam had gone smoothly. The clarity of mind and solid preparation brought by Rebirth allowed me to answer with composure throughout, with no regrets or panic. This fate-changing race against time had begun, with a steady start, utterly rewriting the tragic ending of my past life. On the main pedestrian path at the school gate, the crowd of leaving students and waiting parents swarmed, lively and noisy. In the quiet side lane, I spotted Iris and the 3 others standing there in a disheveled state. They had long lost their former splendor. Their hair was tangled and stuck to their cheeks, their school uniforms wrinkled and dirty, their faces lined with fatigue, wreckage, and despair. They no longer wore the arrogance and confidence of the past, nor the bravado of sticking together. After just enduring the school-wide public criticism and the stain on their records, the 4 of them looked as if all their vigor had been drained away, standing by the roadside lifelessly, silent and unresponsive to each other. The once inseparable little group that had made a spectacle of themselves had completely become the most unfamiliar passers-by. In each other's eyes remained only resentment and regret, no longer the tacit understanding of marching forward side by side. I steadily walked toward the school gate along the pedestrian path, my gaze level with the front, not lingering deliberately, and not turning my head. The first to notice me was Ethan. With a glance, his body tensed, and he instinctively looked away, not daring to meet my gaze. Lucas, right behind him, stiffened all over, his hands hanging limp, clenched the corners of his clothes, and quietly stepped back half a pace, deliberately avoiding my path. Chloe, with reddened eyes, looked ashamed and embarrassed, quickly lowering her head, burying her face in the shadows for fear I would see her current state of humiliation. Only Iris trembled, slowly raising her eyes to look at me. In her eyes, there was no longer a trace of contempt, mockery, or superiority, only extreme unwillingness, remorse, and powerlessness. She once believed she was the favored child of fate, believed I would always have to look up to them, believed my efforts were only in vain. But in just half a day, the outcome had completely reversed. The score she took pride in, her results, forecasts, networks, and sense of superiority were all defeated by my clear-headed decisiveness. She, who had mocked and looked down on ordinary students, now stood calmly in the exam room and held a brand new life in her grasp. And she, and her little group, due to a moment of arrogance and vanity, had personally ruined their futures, stained their records, and ruined their reputation. At this moment, they no longer have the qualification to judge me, nor the nerve to look down on me from a high ground. All their swagger, self-satisfaction, and arrogance have turned into slaps that land squarely on their faces, painful to the core. And, with nowhere to argue, I did not stop. My expression remained calm as I walked straight past them. No boasting, no looking back, no triumphant display, and no unnecessary confrontation. A true comeback never needs to flaunt itself. I walked by, with composure, and that was the greatest suppression of them. Behind me, the four remained silent, and still, they could only watch as I steadily walked away, watching me, who had been ridiculed and mocked by all of them, stride toward a brand new future, while they remained forever trapped in today's farce and regret they themselves had created. The wind on the sidewalk blew away every grievance, each unwillingness, and all gloom from the past. In my past life, I faltered due to cowardice and gullibility, missed the cow, and carried the regret for life. In this life, I am clear-eyed, independent, and decisive, turning the tide against the wind, and taking control of my life. This arrogance and ridicule that began on the bus ended completely at the school gate. I have completely shed the fate of being bullied, crushed, and inverted in my past life, and I have personally ended others' prejudice and oppression toward me. The road ahead is wide, and all things are possible. A brand new life of mine has officially begun. Story 2. My cousin Arya, who lives with us, seems to embody a saintly persona. As the extreme cold apocalypse approached, she announced in the community chat that our house had food. Neighbors, blinded by hunger, swarmed our door, and she gave away all our food. My parents starved to death, yet she secretly hoarded a cupboard full of instant noodles, unwilling to share even a single packet. She also insisted on sheltering 2 desperate men looking for warmth. When the men turned violent, she pushed me out to appease them and protect herself. Not only was I humiliated, but I also became their source of sustenance, helping them survive the cold spell. After surviving, it was only natural for Arya to inherit our house and money. Her image of selfless kindness even caught the eye of a wealthy heir, and she married into a life of luxury. If she wants to play the saint again, I'll make sure she gets her wish. This year is colder than usual. Let's buy more New Year goods and try to stay indoors as much as possible. Watching my neatly dressed parents ready to go out shopping, it felt like a dream. I realized I had been reborn a week before the cold wave, on the day they went out to stock up on New Year goods. Meanwhile, my orphan cousin Arya lay on the couch playing video games, uninterested in stocking up. It's always better to eat fresh food. It's not like we can't buy it. Indeed, she said that, but when the cold hit, she was the first to consume our food, and even gave it away to others, earning the title of a hero in desperate times. Then, as I watched my parents starve, she justified it by saying they were old, and she'd give the younger ones a chance to live. Later, she even sheltered 2 criminals to gain their favor, pushing me out and claiming the need for fresh food. Not knowing when the cold would end, I became their captive food source. They didn't kill me right away, but took fresh flesh from me daily to cook. With each cut, I was left with countless wounds. In agony, I begged Arya for a quick death, but she was indifferent. One must honor one's parents by preserving the body. How can you wish for death so easily? You wouldn't want to disappoint your uncle and aunt, would you? I'm saving you. If you can last until the cold ends, you'll survive. But it was she who let the criminals in and pushed me out. Yet there she stood, bathed in saintly light, blaming me, playing the good person, while I was trapped between life and death. I really wanted to end her life right then, but it wasn't worth sacrificing myself and possibly bringing harm to my parents. So, I planned a deal with her once the cold wave hit, when countless others would die, and no one would investigate her death too closely. I wiped away tears as I woke from the nightmare and approached my parents. This time, I wouldn't let Arya cause their deaths again. Let cousin Arya buy her own fresh food daily. We'll buy our supplies. With that, I put on my coat and hat and went out with my parents. From inside, I heard Arya's voice. If my parents were still alive, I wouldn't have to live at the mercy of others. My parents, ever kind, still urged me. Your aunt and uncle passed away early. Give Arya some leeway. She's staying with us now. We can't make her feel inferior or wronged. Every time she used this tactic on my parents, and they satisfied whatever she asked for using that line. But she didn't deserve it. Even a dog knows to watch the house. But she was nothing but an ungrateful wretch. I remained silent. My parents still didn't understand what Arya was really like, and arguing was pointless. What mattered now was stocking up and preparing to survive the 3 months of the cold wave. When the cold first hit, everyone underestimated it, then thought it was the apocalypse, losing their humanity. But the cold only lasted 3 months. Surviving that was all that was needed. Those who committed atrocities during those months could start anew once it passed. The snow covered all sins. But why should those who did evil thrive on the bones of others? This time, they would blood for blood to appease Arya. My parents bought her a bunch of her favorite snacks. I ignored them, focusing instead on our survival. My self-sufficient contacts arranged to buy meat and vegetables, having them delivered to our house in the middle of the night. In such cold weather, people are reluctant to deliver at midnight, but I persuaded them. With a generous payment, we live on the first floor, and paid extra for a garden and a basement when purchasing the house. While my parents and Arya were asleep, I had everything moved to the basement. The basement is usually used for storage, and family members don't typically go there, so they won't find out. It's mostly filled with Arya's junk over the years. She suddenly wanted to learn the piano, then the guitar. She always wants to follow whatever others are doing, no matter the cost, and throws a fit if she doesn't get her way. She complains about being mistreated by her uncle, and if she doesn't get what she wants. In the end, all the stuff we bought ended up gathering dust in the basement. It was a good opportunity for the movers to clear out all that trash. Eventually, her trash would be thrown out, too. Now the basement is fully stocked, with food, along with coal for heating, and various emergency medicines. By the time everything was finished, it was nearly 5 a.m., and there were still workers coming over during the day. The house needs to be reinforced. With the cold wave lasting 3 months, human malice is at its peak, and I have to be fully prepared. I could hide the hoarding of supplies during the night, but the renovation couldn't be concealed, so I told my parents I received my year-end bonus and wanted to renovate the doors and windows. In reality, during my 4 years in college, I had been working part-time and saving money to start a business with friends, and our small company has been stable for the past 2 years. I never mentioned it, because I was worried about Arya, who only knows how to leech off others. Hearing my parents lament over the money I spent on the house, she felt it was a dig at her. She sarcastically remarked, "The money and house left by my parents are enough to support me. And besides, jobs aren't that easy to find. You've only graduated for 2 years. How could you have so much money? It wasn't earned through shady means, was it? Don't end up embarrassing your uncle and aunt. I wouldn't want to live in a house renovated with dirty money." Upon hearing this, I was furious and grabbed her by the collar and dragged her outside, throwing her out like a stray dog, and even slapped her. "You freeload in my house and never chip in, but your mouth never stops running. Disgusted. You better leave. The debts your parents left aren't even enough to cover your expenses. Don't you have any sense? I can't kill her, but that doesn't mean I can't beat her." I closed the door, and Arya, furious, started a tantrum, running out to the community in her pajamas to play the victim. Ever since she was young, whenever she's upset, she runs out and cries, making it seem like she's being mistreated. Passers-by would look and point, and she put on a pitiful face, claiming her parents were gone, and her uncle and aunt had kicked her out after taking her money, making everyone think we were the villains. This time, my parents didn't go out to coax her. My mom was furious. What a waste raising her all these years. And now she even slanders our family. Have I ever spent her money? I've paid off tens of thousands of her family's debts. She's in her 20s and still living at our expense. Zach, she's your niece. You spoil her, but I won't serve her anymore. Over the years, my mom has tolerated Arya for my dad's sake. Truly fed up. My dad is also helpless. If not for the blood relation, who would want to be the scapegoat? As for whether Arya's parents left anything, honestly, her family was dirt poor, and after they died, all that was left were debts. There was only a dilapidated house that sold for a few tens of thousands, not even enough to pay off the debts. If it weren't for my parents' pity and no other relatives willing to take her in. Who would care about her? Who knew that after all this, she would turn on them like an ungrateful wolf? Eventually, Arya, freezing outside, shamelessly came back. She still put on a proud facade. After the new year, I will find a job and move out. I won't bother you anymore. She even bought a few boxes of instant noodles, planning to stand tall and fend for herself. Hilarious. She said this hundreds of times before. Does she even believe herself? But she won't survive past the cold wave anyway. The night the renovation was completed, a heavy snow began to fall. At first, everyone thought it was just a bit colder than usual this year, until a week had passed, and temperatures plummeted to several degrees below zero. People couldn't travel, and there was a shortage of supplies that couldn't even be obtained through hoarding. Power outages began in some areas, and panic gradually set in as people sensed an apocalyptic vibe. Thanks to the substantial stock of New Year goods my parents had hoarded, our family still had plenty of food. Certainly, the food stored in the basement was more than enough for us to weather the cold wave. With plenty to spare, some in the community group had already run out of food at home and began to buy at high prices. Within the group, I knew Arya had already secretly added these people's accounts. After negotiating a good price, she would take all the food from our house and sell it to the neighbors. Originally, she thought she had found a way to make a fortune and wanted to earn money to prove she wasn't useless. Taking advantage of the time when my parents and I were asleep, she sold all the New Year goods we had hoarded to others at high prices. She played the good person, leaving us to starve. In the end, it led to my parents starving to death, and I was too weak to resist, which allowed her to take advantage of us. This time I got ahead of her. While she was in the bathroom, I moved all the food she had hidden in her room out. It was several boxes of instant noodles she had prepared to show us she wouldn't need handouts. Along with a bunch of snacks, I moved all the instant noodles and snacks outside and messaged everyone in the group. Anyone who's run out of food at home, come to my house to pick it up. I have plenty to share for free. With my offer of free food, who would want to pay high prices? By the time Arya finished in the bathroom and came out, the last packet of noodles had been taken. She saw the group message but didn't realize that the food I was giving away for free was what she had hidden. It's only my fault for cutting off her source of income. She furiously accused me. Grace, are you out of your mind? Everyone's short on food, and you're just giving it away for free. I feigned surprise. We're all neighbors. Aren't we supposed to help each other in times of crisis, rather than profiting from disaster by selling at high prices? Weren't you always nice to the neighbors? Why are you so stingy now that lives are at stake? Should I tell them my cousin doesn't want to give it away? Have them return it, and then buy it with money? Originally, she played the saint, selling our food to others. She also said that neighbors should help each other out, calling me and my parents petty and selfish, and that being related to us was embarrassing for her. Now that the roles are reversed, she can't handle it. She rolled her eyes in frustration. I never said to make them return it. If you're happy to give it away, then you deserve to starve later. She always portrayed herself as a frail, kind-hearted, righteous figure in front of the neighbors. Of course, she didn't want to ruin her image. Moreover, she thought I was giving away our family's food, and she'd have to depend on her face to get by later. Back in her room, she let out a sharp scream. Because the noodles and snacks were gone, she stormed out, glaring at me. Grace, what do you mean by this? You're giving my things away. That was all bought by me. What right do you have to touch it? It's funny. She can sell other people's things at high prices, but when her things are taken, she starts jumping. I responded calmly. Yours. Didn't you buy that? With the family's money. Haven't you been living off my parents and me all these years? Besides, those are just instant noodles and snacks. Eating them isn't healthy. It's better to eat less. Originally, when only her room had some noodles and snacks left, and my parents asked her to share them, she said those life-saving items were unhealthy, and we should eat less. She locked herself in her room, quietly eating, barricading the door, with a wardrobe, watching as my parents and I starved. In the end, my parents left the last half bowl of rotten vegetable soup for me, and starved to death. After they died, she came out and insincerely said, Survival of the fittest. That's the law of nature. They were old. The chance to live should be given to the young. This time, I've hidden the remaining food in my room. Now, I want to see if nature can weed out this trash. Arya, furious, locked herself in her room in a hunger strike. But eventually, no one cared, and she was forced to come out and secretly eat. All the food was in my room. The refrigerator was even moved away. She didn't find anything, not even rotten vegetable leaves. And when she sneaked into my room, I mistook her for a thief and beat her up. I turned on the light and was shocked to see Arya, her face bruised and swollen with resentment. Well, I was just pretending. Oh, it's you, cousin, I said. I thought you were a thief. What are you doing sneaking into my room in the middle of the night? She was still giving us the cold shoulder, obviously too embarrassed to admit she came to steal food. Because she was hungry, she viciously threw at me. Grace, you just wait. Watching her retreat in disarray, I sneered, curious to see what tricks she would try next. She was stubborn, surviving on stolen leftovers and expired snacks from the trash. She refused to give in. Dad couldn't bear it. Let's not have the child starve into illness. Mom was firm. She needs to learn a lesson. Look at what she's become. Don't think I don't know you've been saving food for her. Dad fell silent. He had intentionally left those leftovers. I understood that was his niece, and it was hard for him to watch Arya starve. So, I decided to let the old man see his niece's true face. Soon, our area also lost power, and, within half a month into the cold wave, everything outside was completely frozen. I had prepared a generator in advance, so heating and lighting were not a problem. And there was plenty of charcoal fire, too. Arya, that good-for-nothing, enjoyed these benefits as well. But good-for-nothings will never be grateful. This time, I was prepared. She couldn't sell our food. She ate poorly and held a grudge, taking advantage of our sleep. She told everyone in the group that our house had electricity, heating, and plenty of food. She even posted a photo of our family's meal to the group. In the past half-month, many families had long run out of food, their eyes green with hunger. She told everyone they could come and pick up food themselves after paying $100,000 per person for unlimited access until sold out. For a few $100,000 more, they could stay in the house to warm up together through the cold wave. Desperate to survive, people were willing to spend all they had. Soon, they hurriedly queued up to secure a spot, fearing that being slow meant that even money couldn't help them. It seems Arya wasn't brainless. She just preferred to reap where she hadn't sown, exploiting others' labor. If she succeeded, she'd become rich overnight after the cold wave. In the group, people praised her endlessly for her kindness, calling her a living Buddha, while cursing me for being selfish and unconcerned with others' lives, using incredibly filthy language. They said, we all grew up in the same house, yet she was far kinder than us. Like night and day, Arya tiptoed out to open the door, only to find the new security door had not only an electronic lock, but also 2 big padlocks. Originally, I had installed an extra security door, with 2 more locks from the outside to prevent her from opening it from the inside. When she couldn't open the door, the hungry and cold neighbors outside started complaining nonstop and banging on the door. What's the meaning of this? Playing games with us. We've paid. Are you scamming us? Open the door. If you don't open, we'll break it down. You're inside enjoying warmth and food. How can you stand to watch us freeze? Stop wasting words. Just break in. That's right. Just asking for hundreds of thousands. Can't people live without money? Let's just force our way in. Initially trying to unlock the door, Arya was frightened by those people. I could only laugh as I watched from the doorway. What a fool. After half a month of cold and hunger, humanity was long gone. Did she really think people would obediently pay her, follow her commands, help her teach us a lesson? With her cowardly behavior of betrayal, she still dreamed of ruling in this apocalyptic world. Dream on. Stop arguing. Anyone who's paid can come in. Why are you smashing the door? I remember you didn't pay. Did you? No smashing allowed. But who would listen to her feeble words? Several men, driven mad by hunger, even resorted to using axes and saws. She screamed in terror, intending to hide back in her room. But as she turned, she saw my parents, with grim faces, and me looking cold as ice. My dad, furious, said, "You knew very well we only had enough food at home for a few days, just for our family, and yet you dared to do this. You're just like your parents, ungrateful and treacherous." Indeed, Arya's parents had caused a car accident after running away, with a huge amount of gambling debt, and money swindled from all their relatives. Our family also got swindled out of all our savings, and yet we had to be magnanimous and take care of this bad seed. We've kept quiet all these years to protect her self-esteem, and she really thought she was doing us a favor. Arya, already feeling guilty, was filled with resentment after hearing my dad's words. "You took our house and money and still mistreat me, now insulting my parents, too. You'll get what's coming to you." Hearing this, my dad was completely disappointed with his ungrateful niece. He roared, "Fine, fine, we'll get what's coming to us. Now get out." But where would Arya go in this situation? She shamelessly locked herself back in her bedroom like a turtle in its shell. She took the money and kept quiet, leaving the mess for us to clean up. My mother was so frightened she nearly had a heart attack. If these people really broke in, the consequences would be unimaginable. But they couldn't get in. The door was made of a special custom material that axes and saws couldn't breach. I didn't want to be kept up at night worrying about them, so I had to step in and handle it. Facing two men wielding axes and saws outside, I shivered with instinctive fear when Arya first let them into the house. She used me as a scapegoat and humiliated me. They were never good people, notorious even, and the cold wave only brought out the worst in them. This time, I would not let them in. "Stop wasting your energy. You can't break in." I was actually planning to share some food with everyone. I meant to have my cousin distribute it after sorting it out. Who knew she would take money from you all behind our backs? "Just go back for now, and once it's sorted, I'll have my cousin deliver it to you." These people, eyes red, neither believing nor willing to leave, were like wild beasts wanting to break in and devour us. Two fierce men shouted, "Who are you trying to fool? Took the money, and not acknowledging it. Want to trick us into going back? Think again. Wait till I get in there. I'll kill you, too." I coldly told them. "What are you barking for? Idle and causing trouble. Do you even have 10,000 to gather? You haven't paid, so what are you shouting for?" Arya took the money. It has nothing to do with me. If you want the food, wait for Arya to deliver it. If not, keep smashing. After a while, too cold to endure, they grudgingly retreated, cursing as they went. Once they left, Arya came out of the room, pointing at me and accusing. "Grace, what do you mean? You want to give away the food and have me deliver it? You're just targeting me, trying to get me killed, right?" My parents just watched her coldly, not intending to help. I replied coldly, "Aren't you the one who took the money? Isn't it you who wanted to sell the food? Who else should deliver it if not you? If you don't handle this properly, do you think the neighbors won't beat you to death when they break in? It's all because of you. Now we have to give up our food to stay safe. We don't know how long we can last after sharing the food. Just go after it's done." Arya was not convinced, but suddenly she seemed to agree reluctantly. "Fine, I'll deliver it." Huh, she must have been scheming something else. I gave my parents a reassuring look, went inside, and moved all the food from the refrigerator and the prepared holiday goods out. Even the sunflower seeds were divided into several portions. Arya, like a looter, supervised next to us, fearing we might hide some food, but she didn't even glance at the dusty entrance to the basement filled with junk she had thrown in there. Her mind couldn't fathom that there was plenty of food inside. After dividing the food, I kept 3 portions for us and handed the rest to Arya. "Go deliver it. That's all there is." She swiftly took it, wrapped it up tightly, and headed out. Mom and Dad looked skeptical. Can she really be trusted to deliver something so obediently? Normally, asking her to do anything is like asking for her life. We've given all our food away. What will we do when it runs out? I opened the door and intentionally sighed. What else can we do? With all her fuss, they won't leave us alone. Let's just consider it as a averting disaster. Throughout our complaints, Arya didn't respond at all, which was uncharacteristic of her fiery personality. It was only when I opened the door that she revealed a malicious and smug smile to us. Two shadows that had been lurking outside seized the moment to burst in. I calmly smiled and pressed the remote in my hand, instantly electrifying the door. Arya and the two men were instantly stunned and fell to the ground. I knew things wouldn't be so simple. Arya really thought she was the only one with a brain. Mom and Dad were terrified, almost out of their souls, and hurriedly helped me throw them out. After closing the door again, they were full of regret. We never should have taken in that troublemaker. Now she's colluding with outsiders to harm us. If it weren't for Grace being cautious, our whole family would have fallen into her trap. I took a deep breath and comforted my parents. The ungrateful wolf is swept out the door. Now we can sleep peacefully. The moment she was thrown out marked the beginning of Arya's nightmare. Those two men had known Arya since middle school. They used to go out to smoke, drink, and fight, staying in a hotel room with a bunch of other guys. Although they had lost touch, by a twist of fate, they ended up living in the same neighborhood. Originally, she had deliberately let people in, and today she conspired with them to steal food and take over the house. She thought that finding two thugs would save her. Foolish girl. Who would care about feelings in times like these? I want to see if, without enough food, those two men will let her survive until the cold wave is over. When the three outside were woken by the cold, my parents and I were hiding in the room, eating hot pot and sweating from the heat. They cursed loudly from outside the door, but didn't dare to smash it down again. I posted a video in the homeowners group chat of Arya taking the food out, telling everyone she had taken all the food. As for the fact our house still had electricity, I told them it was only solar panels, which Arya had also taken. To make it more believable, we turned off the lights. They had to believe it since they couldn't get in. The group chat exploded, and, without waiting for the food, they started searching everywhere for Arya. I informed them about Arya and those men conspiring to rob. I even speculated in the group they couldn't have taken the food and run, could they? We only had so much food, and we gave it all to them. With food so close, yet flown away, how could they let it go for a bite of life-saving food? Every household was armed with kitchen knives and tools searching for Arya and those men. I happily cooked some tripe, while my parents hadn't yet recovered from the shock. They couldn't believe the abandoned basement was suddenly full of food. I served them some beef I had stocked up in advance. Don't worry, the cold wave will pass in 3 months. We have enough food. My parents didn't ask how I knew the cold wave would last so long, or why I had anticipated and stocked up. They just ate the beef, with teary eyes, and full of guilt. They felt they hadn't provided enough as parents, and instead had to rely on my protection, thinking of all the times they had asked me to yield to Arya. Now they regretted it deeply, but I knew they loved me. It's just that sometimes being too kind isn't a good thing. Like during a cold wave, kindness is useless. Some people in the group had already lost contact, not knowing if they were dead or just out of battery from those still alive. They learned that they hadn't managed to get the food Arya took. Those two ruthless guys had killed several people, and the others, too scared, dared not pursue further. Now the entire building was deadly quiet. The group filled with pleas for help, medicine, and food. My parents, having nothing else to do, sighed as they looked at their phones. Ethan's grandson is only 5 years old. He's got a high fever, with no medicine. Maybe he won't make it. I glanced at them indifferently. Think it through. Once you leave this door, it'll be hard to come back. They immediately shut up, scared. I warned them again. You can use your phones, but don't talk in the group chat. If you can't stand looking, then don't. The righteous die first in the apocalypse. You can't be the good guys. These people were not worth mourning, nor did they deserve the food I provided. Even the best neighborhood relations turned into enmities during the 3 months of the cold wave. When my parents starved to death, no one was willing to offer even a bowl of soup. I suffered long periods of abuse and torture. The entire building could hear the wails, but did anyone come to my rescue? In the end, even the bodies were consumed, leaving only me clinging to life. There were even people in the chat group begging for a piece of my flesh. eager to sip a broth made from my meat. Opening the door today would only invite wolves into the house. I'm not risking my safety. My parents understood this, too, and simply turned off their phones, ignoring the pitiful messages flooding the group chat. I didn't care. I spent my days browsing the group chats on my phone, enjoying gourmet meals, while keeping up with the survivors' updates. Today it's steak, tomorrow seafood, and perhaps a hot pot to spice things up when the mood strikes. Surprisingly, Arya is still alive. Well, it makes sense, considering she took so much food with her. Those two men have rallied several strong men from the building, and now they reign supreme. They go door to door searching for food and medicine, quick to brandish knives at the slightest displeasure. But after a month, all the scavenged food was gone. Naturally, a group of men has a large appetite when they want to be fed. Given the chance to find food, they certainly wouldn't touch the stiff corpses, and our family has always been of interest to them. They aren't sure if we're still alive, having checked numerous times. Now, with no food left, they start lingering at the door, trying to break in. Damn it! This is your house. How can you not know the password? Outside, Arya's panic cries. I really don't know. The door was changed by that Grace. Don't hit me. If she's still alive, she's definitely hiding food. We'll surely find something if we get in. The noise outside kept me awake, so I gave them a dose of electrotherapy. Arya exclaimed. See, I told you that is still alive, and definitely hiding food. I immediately posted a picture of the hot pot from my phone to the group. You guessed right. I've hidden a lot of food. Too bad you won't get to enjoy it, choosing instead to suffer. With those thugs, with a powered phone in those villains' hands. They saw the message and started beating Arya. Damn it! Your family hid so much food, and you only brought out this little. If you can't open this door, tonight I'm making hot pot, with you in it. Hearing Arya's cries, I felt incredibly satisfied. Why should I make her life easy? From time to time, I kept posting photos of delicious food in the group chat. These are the meals we've been enjoying these days. I've even gained weight. These photos are enough to torment Arya. Soon she appeared at the door knocking and wailing. She never cried this hard, even when her parents died. Aunt, uncle, cousin, I was wrong. They're going to kill me. Please let me come back home. I won't be reckless again. I won't run away from home again. Please open the door. My parents simply hid in their room out of sight, out of mind. I went to the door, saw the shadows lurking in the hallway through the monitor, and smirked coldly, as expected. A leopard can't change its spots. I pretended to be soft-hearted. Cousin, if you realize your mistake, I'm not unwilling to let you come back home. But you won't help outsiders harm our family again, right? She glanced in the direction of the hallway, her face swollen and fearful, and nodded frantically. Yes, I won't. I know I was wrong. Please open the door. I believe she truly wants to come home, and truly regrets her actions, but under the current circumstances, she also truly wants to betray us all. I deliberately tossed a piece of raw meat from the locked window. I still can't trust you. I can only give you a bit to eat. Arya, not knowing how long she had been hungry, grabbed the raw meat and tried to gnaw on it. The group hiding in the corner, seeing the food, couldn't help but rush out to fight over that piece of meat. Watching them scramble for the raw meat disgusted me. Through the door, I pretended to be angry. Arya, you're deceiving me again. I won't trust you anymore. Arya, who didn't get a bite of the meat, looked utterly desolate, her disfigured face even more grotesque. She pounded on the broken door, cursing. Grace, if you don't save me, you and your family will have no peace. You all bully me. My parents' spirits will never forgive you. Be careful. They might come for you. I chuckled. I don't know if they'll come to settle scores with me, but you'll be reunited with your parents soon enough. She looked at the men fighting viciously over a piece of meat, shrinking in fear. She knew all too well what they would do once they ran out of food, and couldn't break down the door. It seemed they had already tasted human flesh. Otherwise, Arya wouldn't be so terrified of being turned into hot pot ingredients. Indeed, the food they had wouldn't last more than a month. There was still over a month to go. They were in for a tough time. I threw a small chicken out of the door and window while they were scrambling for it, reminding them, The cold wave is far from over. And you'll starve to death if you run out of food. Eat fresh food. You can raise it. And eat it slowly. Of course, I wasn't just talking about the chicken. Just like how Arya didn't treat me as a human being back then. They refused to give up on breaking down the door. And made a fuss outside for days each time. They only stopped when they got electrocuted. And eventually, they exhausted their strength without being able to break in. Every time they failed, they took their anger out on Arya. Initially, they spared her life just to trick us into opening the door. But once they confirmed she was useless, she lost all value. The two men she had chosen eventually turned their knives on her. She screamed in terror like a pig about to be slaughtered. Have you forgotten who stole food for you? You can't do this to me. Let me go. I'll knock on the door again. I can make it. Please spare me. 2 months after the cold wave, the building was eerily quiet. Arya's screams occasionally reached us, deliberately made by those people hoping we couldn't stand it, and would open the door. I only then realized how desperate my own screams had been back then. But Arya just watched, unwilling to grant me a quick end. A week later, Arya could no longer scream. I opened the small window in the door, and they immediately dragged Arya out for me to see her pitiful state, hoping I would soften and open the door. She was covered in blood. Not a spot on her was intact. Pitted, with holes everywhere. They outnumbered her, and her situation was even worse than mine had been. She wouldn't live much longer. In desperation, Arya looked at me and pleaded, "Kill me! Please, give me a quick end." I sighed, with pity, and threw out a box of anti-inflammatory and hemostatic medicines. One's body and hair are inherited from one's parents. How can you give up on yourself? Cousin, you must hang in there. I'm doing this for your own good. You can survive if you just get through the cold wave. Arya's face twisted, with resentment. Grace, I hate you. I will kill you. Wasn't I doing it for her good? Why was she angry? I was merely returning the words she had said to me. Why was she upset? I even gave her 2 boxes of medicine. It turned out to be her bad luck. She didn't survive the cold wave, nor did she live as long as I did. She died within half a month, wasting my 2 boxes of medicine. There was still half a month left, and those villains could have barely made it through the cold wave with Arya's help, but they didn't know that, and began to frantically kill each other just to get a bit more food. It must be said that those 2 villains were truly evil, surviving until the end. Every day after eating, they would circle my door like zombies, then shrink back when they got too cold. Unfortunately, they never managed to break down my door by the time the cold wave ended. Communications slowly resumed, and rescue operations gradually began. When they were finally rescued, those 2 villains cried loudly. They put on a victim's guise, looking quite innocent. When the rescue team knocked on my door, they were very surprised that my family was still alive. I told them that we just happened to have stored up some New Year's goods by chance, which was why we were lucky enough to survive. As for fortifying the doors and windows, that wasn't illegal facing robbers at the door. Not opening it wasn't illegal either. And about Arya, she had hoarded the food I allocated for the neighbors and ran off, even trying to conspire with others against her own family. I expressed my regret over her fate. I also provided a surveillance video to them. The 2 villains' acts of violence outside the door were all captured on camera. They thought they could escape the natural disaster and return to a normal life with donations. But why should they? They only deserve to live with that unbearable memory, waiting for justice to be served. Unfortunately, they couldn't wait for justice. Overwhelmed by their mental breakdown, they committed suicide. It was said they bit off their own flesh and died from excessive blood loss. On TV, a news segment showed a second-generation, wealthy philanthropist donating a significant amount of money. There were also praises for those who helped others during the cold wave, creating a harmonious atmosphere. This time, there was no place for Arya beside the wealthy philanthropist. Instead, she was replaced by a similarly generous and beautiful woman. Yes, she looked much more pleasant to the eye